bit of a technological glitch at the beginning. So I'm Lianne, and it's lovely to have you with me in the studio. This is my second show, so hopefully it'll be a bit smoother. Let's just ignore the technical glitch we had at the beginning. Can't wait to have a chat with all of you. Please text in on the chat while you're all listening in. Call in, let me know your experience of the topics that we're going to be talking about. I would love to hear from you. So last week we talked a lot about mental health and mental health first aid, and I think that's a really key topic, being that we're all coming to the end of our holidays and going into a new academic year. I know that I went back to school very early, and I started back at school today. So I've gone down about 7 year groups in the primary school that I'm teaching in, and a little bit scary. So I don't know if I'm talking to high school teachers or primary school teachers, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about changing year groups and the skills that you take with you from different year groups, the skills you take with you to when you teach different subjects. Really interesting post that I noticed today about primary school teachers, and if you could teach a specific subject in primary school, or if you could hand over a specific subject that maybe you're not so confident in, that the best one would be, and these are the choices: maths, English, PE, a foundation subject, and interestingly enough, the chosen subject that people in primary school would possibly not like to teach is PE, physical education. And I know from my experience in primary school that a lot of the time PE is taught by coaches. And I know myself that going into reception now, I'm going to have to teach PE. And I'm a little bit nervous about that. So are there any subjects that you like teaching? Any subjects that maybe if you're in high school, if you've had to do cover for a lesson that you were a little bit nervous about teaching? Last week we talked to a teacher that was doing drama, had a real passion for drama. But as it is in high schools, had to do some cover, had to cover for different subjects, did a bit of English cover. And I asked, what are there skills that you can transfer between the subjects? So I wonder if you guys feel there are skills you can transfer between subjects, and I'd be interested to hear that. I myself, going from year 6, where it was very much getting ready for exams, getting ready for SATs, very timetabled, maths at one point in the day, English in another point, and then possibly history or geography in the afternoon, know that going from that down to reception, where it's much more open-ended, it's been tricky. Today was my first day, so lots of 4 and 5 year old little girls, and it was a tricky one. So I wonder if anybody has any ideas, any advice, that would be lovely to hear. So my guest today is a lady called Zai, and Zai set up a wonderful group on Facebook called the Wellbeing Gift Exchange, and hopefully she'll be coming into the studio soon. And she's going to talk to us about wellbeing, and she's really very passionate about wellbeing, and she's tried to get that passion across to her SLT and put it into her school. And I think sometimes at the moment it's quite a new trend, something new that schools are hearing about, is the well-being not just of the students but also of the teachers and the TAs and all the staff in schools, because we know that at times teaching can be quite a stressful job. And I know that from today firsthand, that dropping down so many year groups really has been a challenge for me. I said to my co-teacher that I actually felt like an NQT, and this is my 8th year teaching. So if there are any NQTs out there listening, don't be scared of your first year. I've been doing it for many years. The year group jump has definitely got me to think about what to do with 5-year-olds and what you do with 10-year-olds, and how can I merge those skills. So it's going to be a big learning curve. And it doesn't just happen to NQTs, to very experienced teachers as well. So if anybody listening, if you have anything to say about that, I'd love to hear from you. We've got a couple of people listening at the moment. So Zai's going to talk about a few things: why wellbeing is so important to her, why she started up the Facebook group, and what is her purpose for the Facebook group. She's also going to be giving us a few, hopefully, some suggestions about how to switch off during term time. I know I definitely slept better in the holidays, and I would imagine I'm going to have a few sleepless nights in the next few weeks. I'm very thankful that we have a bank holiday coming up. I can kind of get my head around the new year and the new academic year, and the new children that we have to teach. Hi, Catherine. How are you? Thank you for the hello. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. She's going to give us some ideas about how to balance work and well-being. And I think well-being and balancing that work, especially as a teacher, is a massive thing. And I know that because I'm quite a creative teacher, I come home at the end of the day and ideas just pop into my head. I know we have lots of different types of teachers. We get teachers that are quite creative, teachers that prefer to have a smart board, teachers that can think of things off the cuff. I know my co-teacher in reception this year has been doing it for a very long time. So off the cuff sometimes works better if you've been doing it for a long time. I myself, being the creative that I am, sometimes ideas come to me at 2, 3 in the morning, which isn't the best, which is why I definitely think I need some suggestions about a bit of work-life balance and how do you switch off your brain at the end of the day? How do you switch off your brain on the weekend? I was actually talking to my co-teacher and she was saying that how wonderful Pinterest is, and there's lots of amazing ideas out there and you can really be inspired. But then sometimes, and even on Facebook groups, seeing as we're going to be talking about that, you get a lot of Facebook groups where there's photos posted, and I know I'm guilty of this, especially over the summer, of looking at these groups and thinking, oh my gosh, this is such an amazing classroom, like how did they do it and how can I do it? But I also have been thinking a lot recently with setup of classrooms, and just because reception is, I find, so resource heavy. I'm not sure how you feel about other subjects. If you teach subjects in high school, if they're very resource heavy, and I think a lot of times teaching as a profession requires you, or maybe not requires, but you feel the need to go out and buy things. I think that's another mindset that I'd really love to change about myself. I usually go into charity shops. I love a good charity shop, but still at the end of the day, that's spending my own money, and it's also not being able to switch off. I'd like to go into a shop on the weekend and not have to think, well, I could use it in my classroom, but I think it is being able to switch off. And I think in any industry, not only in teaching, that's quite a tricky thing to do. So hopefully Zai can give us a few ideas about that. She's also going to talk a bit about why she decided to come up with the group. Why did she invent the exchange group? And it really is lovely. There's quite a lot of people on it. We talk about different things. We talk about life. We ask for suggestions for the classroom. We ask for suggestions about things that are going on in our lives, so buying houses or things that are going on in our families. I made a really good friend and we just met up in London for dinner. So we were talking about it for about 2 years during all the lockdowns, and then eventually we got to meet. So it's just a bit like Teacher Talk Radio. It's a bit of teacher therapy. It's nice to have some friends on the other end of Facebook where you're going to get good advice and people that can talk to you and people that can give you advice. A bit of a sounding board. So hopefully you will come away with some good ideas about well-being and some good ideas, just like myself, about how to switch off on those days where it's been really difficult. I know myself, I'm very hard on myself as a teacher. I think I'm almost a bit too reflective sometimes. And I think as a profession, we are quite reflective. So, and Catherine's mentioned that it is a wonderful group and definitely used it when I was buying a flat. I have a great friend that I met through the group that I see and talk to most of the time, and also introduced a friend to the group, Juliet, who we talked to last time. So Catherine we talked to last time as well. So hello, Catherine, and thanks for coming in to listen again. Yeah, and Catherine's right. It really is a lovely group, and she used it when buying a flat. So always really great just to get a bit of advice, and you can even get anonymous advice. So maybe if you don't want anyone on Facebook knowing what's going on in your life, Zai is really good about posting messages on our behalf. So it's just a really friendly, safe place to kind of ask questions or air any grievances or get things off your chest. And every now and again you get a gift through the post, and that's really lovely. Love that. So hopefully Zai will be in the studio really soon, and if you have any questions for her, please send a message, send a text to the group. Love to chat to you, or you can call in. So it's called the Wellbeing Gift Exchange Group. Thank you, Charlene, for asking the question. So yeah, Wellbeing Gift Exchange Group, and it's on Facebook, and not just teachers, TAs, lots of different people. So I'm just going to take a quick ad break, and then hopefully we'll get Zai onto the phone lines after that.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
So we're just waiting for Zai to call in again, and looking forward to talking to her about wellbeing. If you have any questions, please text them in to the chat, and we would love to answer them. So Catherine, also good for people who were teachers and left the profession for other opportunities, and definitely not everybody on the group is a teacher. So we've got teachers, TAs. I think one of our ladies left teaching and is now working at Sainsbury's. So I know a big question is always, are there other opportunities after teaching, and are there things that as teachers we can go into? And I really think as teachers we have such good skill sets, and I know I haven't always taught. It's my second career, so my first career was in events management, and I've really transferred some skills. And I think as teachers we're so adaptable, and it's really great to use those skills with different types of jobs. So don't be scared to leave the profession. There's always other things out there. I'm just waiting for Zai to call in. Zai, if you're there, we'd love to chat to you and get your experience of wellbeing. I know in some schools wellbeing is not such a big topic and not such an important topic. So it'd be interesting to see what it's like in your schools. I know some heads are really into it. Some heads think it's really important. Other heads are possibly not on the same bandwagon. So taking time to get schools into the idea of wellbeing and how it affects teachers and also pupils. So yeah, really, really interesting. If you have any questions, please text them in. Just trying to get Zion on the line. Hopefully we're not having any more technical glitches like we had earlier. If you have any subjects that you really enjoy teaching, and how can you think about taking those subjects and using that passion in other subjects? So Zai, do we have you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Well, I can.
Oh,
We can have
it's a bit weird talking to you as
I
an
know.
actual person.
Yeah, I know. It's very strange. I don't know how long the wellbeing group's been going, but I feel like it got me through lockdown, and with like talking to people but not knowing them is always a bit strange.
Yes, it's been going for 3.5 years, almost 3.5 years. We started in 2018. So yeah, it has definitely gotten me through lockdown.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, we talk about so many different things, different topics. It's not just about education. It's almost like having a friend on the end of the line, or lots of different friends that you can contact.
Totally. I mean, we all loved our Masked Singer chats, and we'll have a Strictly chat going soon when that starts. So it's not just about teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a massive WhatsApp group.
It is, but it's so good for everybody's well-being. So, and that's what makes it such a lovely place to be.
Absolutely. So I guess if we start, maybe explain like how did you get into teaching, and then like kind of lead into how wellbeing came into that.
So I'm actually a psychology graduate. So when I left university, I wanted to be an educational psychologist, and I've always wanted to work with children and help children since I was little. I mean, I'm sure we've all played teacher, you know, when we're little with our teddies and our dolls and things like that. But at the time, to become an educational psychologist, you had to have 2 years teaching experience. So then I did my PGCE. I actually trained in early years, so it's quite interesting listening to you talk about reception.
Oh my God. I need advice.
Well, this is the thing. I've been teaching for 15 years now. I've taught Key Stage 1, I've taught Lower Key Stage 2, I've been in management roles, but I have never taught early years. The one place I trained, I've never taught in my 15 years.
Wow. So, it's such a difficult game.
It is, definitely. And it's just, I mean, my 2 years sort of were up with teaching and I could sort of go for my master's, but then I realized that I had more of an impact being in the classroom, coming in afterwards and trying to deal with any issues. So, so that's how I became a teacher. And my interest in well-being, I'm now the well-being lead at my school as well. So, I'm sure, you know, everyone's so fed up with me now, just being like, but what about well-being? We need to think about well-being, staff well-being, people well-being. It's all about well-being. So you sort of walk into my classroom, I've got an inside out mental health check-in. I teach year 2. We have a calm corner. It's, you know, the children come in, they take their names, they pop them on the emotion that they're feeling, and then we talk about it. So mental health is a driving force throughout my classroom. So the children are so in tune with their emotions. And I just kind of feel that if we get them when they're young, then it just makes such a massive difference. I mean, sort of outside of teaching, I'm also a volunteer for Shout, the text line.
What is that?
It's so Shout 85258 is the sort of mental health text line. It's like the Samaritans, but you can text in rather than calling, and it's just sort of, it's just amazing how many young people text into that as well. That's why I'm so my passion is just to, you know, get mental health on the forefront. Let's sort of break down the barriers, break down the stigma, and get people talking about their emotions, because the more we talk, the better everything will be, because we can get everything out there. A lot of things happen because of misunderstandings. We know that from school, where communication isn't always at its best, but we need to show children, you know, that this is how we deal with our emotions. There are ways of dealing with them, and there's ways of identifying things before they get sort of overwhelming. And, you know, as adults, we're overwhelmed by things, and need to think about the impact we're also having on children as well.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Catherine just said that it was you who encouraged her to volunteer with Shout, which is lovely.
This is what I mean. It's just like, I'm on about well-being so much.
That's the group in action though, isn't it? Because Catherine's in our group on Facebook. And I think that's really the group in action. It's so interesting. I've never heard of that. And I think sometimes it's actually scarier to make a phone call than it is a text. And we know that.
I mean, I'll very blatantly say now, this is like social anxiety at its best.
Me too. I think she just got back from school, 4 and 5-year-olds, and now like sit down to talk to adults. It's like mind blowing.
But sometimes it is just, it's hard to talk and sort of convey your emotions and find the right words, where when you're texting, it's just easier to think about what you're going to say. And the other thing I have in the classroom as well is a worry monster, so the children can write down what they're feeling and pop it in the worry monster. And then that takes away that sort of, oh, I need to go to my teacher and tell her how I'm feeling. Well, actually, they can just pop it down, and I'll read it. And then we can have a sort of private conversation when no one else is around. So I think that's the thing. It's knowing that other people are around you and might be listening in. And I think that could be that whole sort of scary thing for adults and children.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
definitely.
So
it is interesting, because I feel like starting off with psychology and then it kind of leads quite well into well-being. I've just always been fascinated and really want to know more about how the kids' brains work, and like what is going on in their brains. And it's funny you say about ed psych, because I've well, this is my second career as a teacher, and I've always had in the back of my mind like ed psych would be the next step.
Yeah. It is so interesting. It's interesting just to learn about what changes happen in a child's brain as they grow up.
Fascinating.
And like Catherine, I've also trained as a mental health first aider, and it was just fascinating just listening to just chemical changes, how they affect you, and sort of the impact it has on children and on teenagers. And it's just, if we can provide that sort of toolkit for children and teenagers in school with how to deal with your emotions, it can just stand them sort of on better footing for their sort of adulthood and their life later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Catherine was saying last week, correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, but emotionally, children are developing till about 18.
Yeah, and we get confused by our emotions at times.
Oh yeah.
And we're adults and we have a better sense of understanding. And sort of when you're younger, you don't, do you?
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's like one of the first questions I ask when a child comes to me and says, I have a tummy ache, I will ask if they're worried about something, because sometimes their tummy ache is down to anxiety. And it's not always because they're feeling poorly. If they say, oh, I'm not worried about anything, then I can move on to, let's look at poorliness. But that's the first question, because I think even with us as adults, again, we have that feeling in our tummy, don't we, when we're anxious about something, and we know it's anxiety, but children don't. For children, it's just a tummy ache. So it's just those little things is helping them understand sort of their emotions and how sort of things represent in physical ways.
Yeah, and I think you said so interesting that well-being in a school is still sometimes a bit of a not the strongest subject to be talked about, maybe by SLT.
It's not a priority, is it, really, for some people? I mean, in some schools it is, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But for other schools, it's still all about the data. Yeah. And, again, that's understandable. We have league tables, we have Ofsted. But what I'm trying to sort of say to people is actually, if a child's not happy, no amount of learning is going to take any sort of effect on them. If they're coming into school unhappy, if they're coming into school anxious, they're not going to be listening to what you're saying, because their mind's going to be too busy thinking about whatever's making them anxious. And I try so hard to make my classroom a sort of safe space for children, and just to make it open. They know they can come and talk to me about anything, and we'll sort of set aside time during the day where it's just, let's just have a chat, and we'll just sort of talk. And it's normally first thing in the morning and after break, and that's just their 5 minutes to tell me if anything has happened. Because I mean, as well as I do, they sort of come in and they're like, oh, but I need to tell you this, and you're like, I need to get the register done, I'll talk to you in a minute, kind of thing. And then actually that minute never comes, and I'm guilty of it, where I'm just like, okay, can you just hang on a minute? And that minute doesn't come because I've taken the register, and then I'm starting my lesson, and then I'm doing something else. And it's just having that dedicated time for children just to talk, especially after sort of what we've been going through for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
It's, they're being exposed to so much. They're hearing about COVID. I used to have children sort of worried that we'd go into another lockdown. Obviously, last year we sort of shut in March for the majority of the children, and when they went back to school, they were in a New Year group. So, there were loads of fears sort of going around, and it was just important that the children were able to talk about how they were feeling, really. And just giving them that time and giving them that space, just so it doesn't get overwhelming. I mean, I teach year 2, so it's, they're quite young, and things were really scary for them, and they just needed that chance to talk and to be heard.
Totally. I think time's a big thing in primary school. I'm not sure how it is in high school. I don't know if we have any high school teachers listening. You can tell us what your thoughts are, but like you say, it's always like the English lesson, then break, and the maths lesson, then lunch, and another. It's like there's always another lesson to teach. And I just, like you said, the minute never comes, so you have to make the time for it.
Yeah,
which is difficult
totally.
sometimes.
And we fill every moment of our day, don't
Yeah.
we? I mean, I don't know about you, but what do you do when your children finish work? Do you give them something else to do? So if they finish their activity,
Like
is
an
it
extension.
yeah.
Yeah. Or the book corner is very nice. Go read a book. Or,
Yes. But ideally, what we want to be saying is, right, go and read a book. But I mean, for me, it's right, you've got this extension activity and then you've got this next step. And we're
Yeah.
always filling their time. We don't give the
Yeah.
children a moment to sit still and sort of process what they've been learning.
Yeah.
And, and that's just as important. It's just that sitting still. I mean, we've tried to introduce yoga in our school. On YouTube. It's the Rainbow of Confidence, and they go through these yoga poses, but there are affirmations as well. And it's just lovely. And I've introduced affirmations in the morning for my children. And I'll just sort of say an affirmation. So I am brave, I am smart and I make the right choice, and I'm a good friend, I can make a difference, just things like that. And they'll repeat them, because the more we say these things, the more we'll start believing them. But I also give them time just to sit and just to breathe. So we'll just sort of sit there, put one hand on our chest, one hand on our tummy, and we just breathe in and we breathe out. And no one talks. We just spend a minute breathing. And I say to them, whenever they get overwhelmed, they just need to stop, take a minute, and just breathe in deeply and breathe out. And just do that for a few minutes. And just calm themselves down, because they need that time. They need that time
absolutely
to process and not be overwhelmed. And as you said, we're filling every single moment of our day. These poor little children don't have a moment to breathe. And it's just it's just so important. So that's what I'm trying to get across, is for everybody's well-being. Even like for us as teachers, it's hectic filling every moment of our day. And we just need to be there with the children and just be like, right, let's just take a minute here and just stop, just talk about something else. And that's why the Facebook group works so well, I think, because every so often we just stop and we talk about something else. And it's not always teaching. And I think that's what we all kind of need.
I mean, Catherine said, and I actually never thought about it this way, but I guess in high school it's even harder for well-being to find those times to chat, because they're in different classrooms for every lesson. Sometimes she said they're in different sites, so different buildings even, and they're with different teachers all the time. So you never really think, as a primary school teacher, you never really think about your high school colleagues and how actually they're going through similar things with the kids.
Yeah. And their children are at the point where all those chemicals and hormones are going sort of crazy in their brains. And they're going from pillar to post. And if there is anything wrong, no one's really picking up on it unless you're sort of thinking about well-being and you're looking out for all of those signs. So I can imagine it's very hard in secondary school.
You feel for the kids, don't you?
You do. My nephew's starting secondary school next week, and like he's excited but he's scared, and we were sort of having this conversation about it, and it's the weight of expectation on him as well, and sort of doing the wrong thing. And he's just sort of like, what if I get a detention? And I was kind of like, let's just try to stay out of trouble. And he was just like, but what if I do the wrong thing and I don't know I'm doing the wrong thing? And it's just, there's all those things that he's sort of thinking about, because it's a whole different ball game for him now. And obviously sort of from year 5, he's had a very unsettled experience at school because of the pandemic. And these are all the things that we need to be thinking about, is how have these various lockdowns affected the children, and like their experience of learning.
I do think a lot of the times it's a bit of a blasé topic, and it kind of follows along with like PSHE as a subject.
Yes,
because I feel like they're both a bit blasé in schools, and it just needs such like a massive revamp, because it's so important as a subject. But I think people think PSHE, especially in primary school, and they think, I have to do a circle time at the beginning of the year, and like, who are you and what do you like? And it's like, actually, no, it's one of the most important subjects in primary school, and I'm sure in high school as well.
And have you noticed a lot of the time it gets left to PTA teachers and like other staff to do? And like PSHE is one of those sort of lessons where actually you can really talk to your children about things, and you can really sort of delve in deeper with things like well-being and sort of look out for signs things might be wrong. But as you said, it's just a topic that, you know, there's no like league table for it, there's no data for it, no one really cares, and sort of thing. And then you've got people who are passionate about PSHE who are going, actually, we need to teach this. And we're getting to the point in my school now where sort of I'm trying to promote it more. I'm not the coordinator of PSHE, I'm the coordinator for RE, and that's another subject, but that's for a different conversation.
They're in the same boat, aren't they? RE
They
and
are,
PSHE.
bless those subjects. But next year, as part of my wellbeing lead, I'm going to be out of class one morning a week, and I'm going to be teaching just specific mental health lessons across year 2. I think the hope was that I do all of Key Stage 1, but that's 6 classes in sort of 2 lessons, and I was kind of like, it's never going to happen. You know, if you want to do it, you want to do it well. So I'm actually using, I don't know if anyone's heard of the Blurt Foundation.
What's it called, sorry?
It's the Blurt Foundation.
Oh, Blurt.
So, so it's an amazing charity and organisation. So they do, you can sign up to monthly boxes, which I get, and they just send you lovely stuff. It's like a gift exchange every month. You get a box full of really nice things just for you to think about your well-being and your self-care. But the lady who founded the Blurt Foundation, Jane Hardy.
Catherine just mentioned her name in the chat.
Yes. She used to suffer from depression, and she went through the sort of process that depression sort of brings along, pretty much had a breakdown, and she kind of changed her life. And now she sort of goes out and she produces all these fantastic resources to help other people. So if anyone fancies going on their website, there's a lovely resource section which is full of great articles. You can sign up for a weekly email to be sent to you. It's nothing like Becky's emails, so no one needs to worry about that on a Sunday. They're just really nice sort of uplifting emails. But they've started doing an education program. So I think they're working with 200 schools, and my school's one of them.
Wow.
And I'm basically delivering lessons based on mental health and well-being to the children that have been developed by the Blurt Foundation. So I'll be doing that. And later in the month, I'm training to do mindfulness, to teach mindfulness to 3 to 6 year olds. So I'm already qualified to teach 7 to 11. But I work in a infant school, so like I can take bits from it, but I can't do anything else. But now the Mindfulness in Schools project has come up with a program sort of specially for younger children. So I'm hoping then I'll be able to teach reception after October sort of half term and do a couple of mindfulness-based sessions with them every week, because to me, sort of the younger we teach the children these skills, like the more likely we are to embed sort of all these good practices with them. So my class, bless her, they do mindfulness with me a lot of the time. We sort of like do a lot of meditation, just to like spare of the moment, let's take 5 minutes here. And my head teacher's very aware I do it, because she's walked in while I was lying on the floor, and she's, you know, and she knows I do it with them. And sometimes she sort of, bless her, she has sort of started assemblies sort of doing a little bit of mindful breathing and stuff like that. But this is sort of like 5 years down the line. This is 5 years of me sort of constantly on about well-being and mindfulness, and, you know, let's do this for the children. And that's where it's sort of come from. So I'm slowly, I kind of feel like I'm finally getting there.
Yeah, I know. I've seen some of your posts on the group talking about trying to get it into the school, and I can't think of another word apart from brave to, just keep at it and just to keep going to SLT and to really get them to understand it, because it's so hard in some schools. I think possibly it's when a head's been there for a very long time, and I think some heads maybe just don't love the changes that are coming into play, and I think it will really. Sorry?
It's getting all the staff on board as well.
That too, yeah.
That's the issue. It's getting all the staff on board with
difficult.
it. It's very, very hard. So I'm lucky because my head teacher's quite on board with it. So all the little things that I suggest for staff well-being as well, she's kind of like, okay, let's try it and see how it goes.
Amazing.
So one of my suggestions was that we had a afternoon, sort of just for staff to be able to book a well-being afternoon, because I'd worked in a school previously when I was in my management role, and we were able to have a whole day. So I was kind of like, okay, a whole day might be pushing it. Maybe we could go for an afternoon. And it was, but what I wanted to make very clear was that it had to be everybody, because I think the other thing about staff wellbeing is it's always one group. It's never the whole school community staff. So it was very much like, it can't just be teachers, or it can't just be teachers and teaching assistants. It has to be your dinner supervisors. It has to be your office staff. It has to be your cleaners. And thankfully my head was very on board with that. So we get to book like an afternoon just once a year that we get to just do anything that's not school related. So that's the sort of condition of that, yes, let's have an afternoon, because we know what we're like as teachers. It's kind of like, oh, spare time, let me catch up on schoolwork.
Yes. Let me do some cutting and laminating.
Yes, exactly. I might be in front of the TV, but I'll just feed these through the laminator. And I'm guilty of that as well. I've spent a lot of my teaching career just being like in front of the TV, just like laminating. And not really watching the TV because I'm making sure my laminating pouch doesn't screw up on the TV kind of thing. It's just like it's on for noise. But it's
is that not why reality TV exists? For teachers to laminate and watch.
Yeah, exactly. It's just sort of background noise, isn't it?
It is.
And it's taken me so long to get out of that habit now, just because I'm very good. Sort of my work-life balance has really improved over the last few years, but that's taken so much effort.
It's difficult.
It's so hard. And so I'm really lucky because, we have an email policy. There's no expectation to check our emails at night or at the weekend. I haven't checked my emails all holiday. I go back next week. I'm kind of thinking I really should check my email at some point.
Do it.
I might check it on Tuesday just to be like, let me just make sure, there's nothing I need to know tomorrow. But, it's been very much, we need to promote staff well-being, because if you don't have happy staff,
you're
never going to have happy children, because well-being is something that if you suffer from poor well-being, you're going to impact on other people's well-being, whether you mean to or not. It's, it's just a fundamental thing to our lives, but we impact on each other's well-being. And sort of that's the message I try to get across to the children as well. I use a book to do it, but it's a sort of like, let's fill each other's buckets. It's a very American book, but it gets the point across that, we impact upon each other's moods, and like we just need to be kind. And I think sometimes I'm a bit too idealistic, because I believe in kindness, wholeheartedly believe in kindness. I think, everyone's well-being could be so much better if we're not just kind to each other. We should be being kind to each other, but we should be being kind to ourselves as well. I think a lot of the time, and especially in the teaching profession, we're just not kind to ourselves. Everything needs to be perfect. I heard you talking about Pinterest earlier. And, you know, just like I look at my classroom sometimes, I'm like, oh my God, just like, this is not the Pinterest classroom I was imagining.
Yeah,
And I
I
think we put
know.
that expectation on ourselves that, you know, especially in reception, it was always when I was training, it was kind of like, you know, this needs to look perfect. I've seen this on Facebook, I've seen this on, you know, whatever. And like, this doesn't look like someone else's tough tray. You know,
Mm,
like it looks amazing, and mine just looks like this. And
yeah,
it's that being kind to ourselves. And I think
yeah,
that's sort of my main message really with well-being is, you know, let's just be a bit kinder, be a bit kinder to ourselves as well as other
yeah.
people.
It's so
And so,
difficult because I think, and especially because I think it's part of the teacher's standards that you have to reflect on all your lessons. And I know for myself, when you say like to have just not high expectations for ourselves, in that even today I was like, oh my gosh, like what was I doing? Why were the children not doing that? Why were they not doing that? And my co-teacher was like, Lianne, it's your first day in reception. You just came from year 6. And I said to her, I was like, yeah, I'm very tough on myself.
yeah,
And I don't know if it's me or if there's other teachers out there, and it's like a common theme with teachers that
it's
we're
like,
just so hard on ourselves.
yeah. I remember, I think I was in the second year of my teaching, and my head teacher had observed me, and he was asking me how I felt the lesson went, and I listed off just like all the things that I thought had gone badly. And he just sort of sat there and went, right, Zainab, listen to me. He said, I know you have really high expectations of yourself. He said, but you're going to get to the point you'll never meet those expectations, and nothing will be good enough for you. And I just sort of sat there and thought, actually, you're so right. Like, nothing was ever, you know, he'd be like, I didn't even pick those things out. He'd go, this is awful. This is awful. He was just like, you know, it's like, I didn't see any of that. He said, I saw no problem with that. He said, you
Aw,
just have overly high expectations. He was just like,
yeah.
you know, have high expectations, but like be realistic about
Yeah.
those high expectations. And that's
Yeah.
something that I took away with me.
Mm.
And I still, you know, I still have to sort of like, when someone sits me down and was like, talk to me about your lesson, I still have to very, very, you know, I'm biting my tongue, not being like, oh, I think I could have done this better. You know, I'm just like, and it's looking for those positives. And I think as teachers, we just want to do the best possible job. You
Yeah.
know, we're
Yeah.
very much like, we want to do right by the children,
Yeah.
but
That's it.
it's like, we're never going to do right by the children if we're going to burn ourselves out doing it.
That's so true.
So it's that whole finding that balance, and that's so hard. Then, you know,
Yeah.
15 years later, I'm only just finding that balance of, I'm not going to look at Pinterest. I actually deleted all my teaching like boards off Pinterest because it
you?
was just doing my head in, because I just
Yeah.
look at it, go, oh, my classroom doesn't look like that.
I know. I
And then,
think, God, that looks so nice. But where do they get other things from? It's so expensive. And
yes,
how many things you have to
exactly.
print and buy? And it's like you said, you just got to be realistic. And I just
Yeah.
have to say, I hate that question at the end of an observation. How did you feel the lesson went? I hate it.
Yeah, it's a sort of like dying inside, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you don't want to be like, oh, I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
They're like, what were you talking about? You're not being very reflective, are you? So
Yeah.
that's why I go the opposite way, I think, because I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, and am I overhyping my own lesson? So yeah, I do hate that question. And it's just, yeah, but head teachers seem to do it. It's the first question they ask you when you sort of walk in.
I know. Yeah.
How do you think that went? Just like, oh.
In your head, you're like, do I big myself up
Yes.
a lot? Just a little? Like,
and then
I
be disappointed if they're just kind of like, yeah, okay, that's not what I was thinking.
Yes.
So I'm always just like, oh, I think it went okay, you know.
Yeah.
And then I've learned to think of one good thing, and then just hope they're just like, they'll take the rest of the conversation and be like, this is what I thought.
Exactly.
So it kind of saves me from that a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the other good thing about my school. I have to say, give credit to my head teacher. She stopped lesson observations.
Oh, wow.
So she now just walks around daily and just sort of pops in, says hello to the children, and then that's it. And so she knows what your sort of lessons are like from her random drop-ins. Unfortunately for me, like, the random drop-ins are normally when I'm drawing something that doesn't look like what it's intended to be, and the children are sort of looking and going, what is that? Or having some sort of technology meltdown. This year we're going to be observing each other,
Oh, I love
because it's
that.
less stressful. You know, I mean, we've all been in that sort of situation of we're going to have a learning walk and they're going to come at this between this time, and you're sort of like on edge for the whole hour, just
Yeah.
waiting for them to come in. So we're going to be observing each other now. So it's, you know, like with things like that, I kind of feel that, oh, okay, things that I'm saying about well-being are, you know, like drip
Being
feeding
listened to.
their way through. Like, it might take a while, but it's sort of, it is being listened to, and just, yeah, hopefully that will just be much better, and no one will ask me, what do you think went well in that lesson? It's just like, be far worse. So yeah, so it's just sort of looking at things we can do in schools as well as staff, just to help each other with our well-being. And things like that with lesson observations. I mean, my children always know when my head teacher's going to be coming in for a lesson observation, because obviously as a teacher I prime them to be like, right,
of course,
coming, you know, and like, what are you going to say if she asks you this question? You know? And but they can feel that, and that's what I mean by, if our well-being's not good, like the children sort of pick up on that, just as we do with adults. When we know that another adult's in a sort of bad mood, or someone else is upset, because we can feel that energy's in the air. And that's why I'm so sort of like passionate about staff well-being, because I don't, you know, children don't want to sit there in a classroom with a really, really tense, stressed out teacher. And, you know, and it's just really important. So I've tried to sort of implement different things. So like the well-being afternoon being one of them. We do a well-being fairy at school. So we pick a name from a bag, not a hat. And over the term, we just leave little gifts for that person, just sort of every other week. We'll just shove something in the pigeonhole. Because who doesn't like finding chocolate in their pigeonhole? You know, just as an unexpected thing. So it's just doing little things like that. But again, it's getting everybody on board. And, you know, just making sure everyone realizes that actually it's just doing something nice for other people. And just like, we've done a staff jar as well. So we had a labeled jar. So the jar had someone's name on it, and everyone just wrote on a piece of paper something nice about that staff member, popped it in. And at the end of the week, that staff member took that jar home and read all the little slips of paper. And, you know, that costs nothing apart from a minute of your time.
That's so
and
nice.
It's just, you know, it's just those little things, because you just want to feel appreciated at the end of the day, don't you? And just feel that you're making a difference, or at least I do.
Absolutely, I think we all do.
You know,
we're also so stuck in our classrooms sometimes that we don't see like the rest of the school, I think.
No, and lockdown and COVID's made it so much worse with bubbles and things like that. It's because we're sort of in our own little bubble and we don't see anybody else. And, you know, it's just missing that sort of social contact that you'd have in a school.
It's so important in a school, I think, you know, at lunchtime to go and have somewhere to kind of just like decompress. And I know in our first lockdown, the head kind of closed the staff room. I was like, I understand why you don't want all of us sitting in there. I was like, but where do I eat my lunch?
Yes, you just kind of need to get out of your room, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm not big on my staff room at lunchtime, so I'll work half of my lunch, just because I want to go home early.
I agree.
So I'll work half of my lunch, and I'll either just go and sit in my car and meditate, just shove on a guided meditation, or I'll go for a walk. But I need to just get out of the classroom for 5 minutes. If, you know, if nothing else, I just need that space from my classroom just to be like, right, let me just have a moment, recompose, sort of gather my thoughts. And it's really hard, you know, if you feel you can't go in the staff room and stuff like that, to sort of do that. And so, yeah, it's just making sure you all have a space to go. Just
that's so important, just to be able to. You need a change of scenery sometimes, and a change of humans as well. I think.
Adult conversation where you can talk about TV and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And not about Peppa Pig, whatever the children are watching.
Yeah. Totally. Well, it's been amazing. I'm just going to go to a quick ad break and play the news, and then maybe we can come back and chat a bit more. Maybe we'll talk about the Facebook group.
Yes,
Awesome.
definitely.
So I'm just going to mute you for a sec.
Cool.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. The government has announced a new global teacher training qualification, enabling teaching trainees to study abroad and achieve International Qualified Teacher status, or IQTS. The opportunity will also allow teachers from other countries who hold IQTS to teach in UK schools. The Department for Education says it must ensure a robust inspection regime for the success of the course, and applicants need a grade 4 or equivalent in English at GCSE and to have completed part of their education in England. Parents and students at a Highland school have successfully appealed the local council's decision to only provide unisex toilets at their school. The reasons given behind the protest were that younger students and their much older peers were required to mix, and concerns about number of sanitary bins and facilities available. On Sunday, the Highland Council agreed to return to separate toilets for boys and girls, whilst also providing one block of unisex toilets. A school in the south of Scotland has been forced to close due to a COVID outbreak mere days into the new term. The decision came as 8 members of staff were in isolation. The school is expected to reopen on Thursday. That was your latest Teachers Talk Radio News.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
So hopefully back with Zoe now, and I thought it'd be a good idea just to talk a little bit about the group and maybe why did you decide to start the group all those many months ago?
Yeah, the Facebook group. I love the Facebook group. It's amazing, and it's turned into something I didn't imagine it would turn into when I started it. So I started it. Basically, I was inspired by a Australian blogger that I followed. One of my sort of passions outside of well-being and teaching is photography. And I used to do a photo a day challenge.
Right.
And she's set up a gift exchange. So for everyone who did her photo a day challenge, and every Christmas she was setting up a Facebook group, and we'd sort of get a partner that we had to buy a present for Christmas. And it was amazing. It was just lovely knowing that we were making someone else happy. Again, all about kindness, all about well-being. And I then thought, oh, why don't I do this in another wellbeing group that I'm part of? and which we call the other group in my Facebook group, but run by a very well-known teaching resource company. And I asked the admin of that group if I could run a Secret Santa, and they agreed, and I did it, and it went quite well. And a few other people decided to do gift exchanges, and so this was 2017 when I did my Secret Santa in the group. And I asked the admin if I could do a back to school exchange, because I thought, sort of, as teachers, it'd be nice to do something that would help us in our classroom, sort of send gifts that would be useful in the classroom. Unfortunately, the admin were sort of a bit, I'm not sure if we want any more of these exchanges going on. So I then decided, okay, let me just take inspiration from Chantel and set up my own Facebook group, and we'll just run the gift exchanges from there. And for those of you who are listening who aren't part of my Facebook group is basically a group for school staff, and every 6 weeks or so we have a gift exchange. So we sign up through a website called Elfster. We get given a name of somebody else in the group, and we buy that person a present and we send it off. So we've currently got a back to school exchange going. I know you received your present on your birthday, didn't you?
It was amazing. I opened it and it was just like sparkles everywhere. Sparkles and tea.
So we've got a back to school exchange going on. So we're sending each other presents that will help us with the start of the year. We've got another gift exchange set up for winter warmers. So the theme of that is going to be like a winter survival kit. But we've had socks and chocks, where we've just literally sent each other socks and chocolates.
Yeah.
I mean, I love socks. My feet are always cold. I think out of all the exchanges, it's my favourite. We've had a book exchange. We do all these sort of really lovely things, and we kind of, without sounding like a real sort of creepy person, we stalk each other in the group. Now I say this out loud, it just sounds really, really creepy and unsafe. But we ask
basically, we're all Santa's elves, and no one really knows till now.
So we sort of post questions in the group, and we answer the questions. Sort of like for the back to school exchange, it was things like sort of what colour pens do you use for marking? Are you allowed stickers and stampers? Sort of what do you like to do outside of school? And we read people's answers and we buy appropriate gifts. And because we've been doing that for 3 years, I think we all know each other really, really well.
Yeah.
And, I mean, everyone in the group knows I love unicorns and hot chocolate oranges. Like people in the group know more about me, I think, than some of my colleagues at school. I've worked with them for 5 years. But it's just an amazing group. And as you said earlier, it's sort of gone from being a gift exchange group to being just a supportive community. And I asked in the group a couple of days ago sort of what impact the group had on individuals. I think I scared a few people because they thought I was going to shut the group down or something. I just wanted sort of a bit of an insight, and sort of no judgment was what came up the most. We can post anything in that group and no one's going to judge us. And that's one of the sort of most amazing things about it, is everyone's so supportive of one another. And we've talked about, like, we've seen people get engaged, get married, have babies. Like, we've followed people's journeys. We've seen people move schools, sort of move out of teaching into another career. We support each other with relationship breakups, but then we also have really nice things going on as well. So as I said, we had the Masked Singer chat, so every Saturday night I was sort of posting a little post where we were all sort of making guesses about who was underneath the masks. We had an ongoing thread for Eurovision where we were talking about all the songs. We'll have Strictly. I do Self-Care Sunday every Sunday. And every week I do a sort of weekly check-in as much as I can with the group. Because I don't know about you, but one of the things I really hate is when people go, "Oh, how are you?" and they're just asking just as
Yeah.
I need to ask you,
Yeah.
and like you don't really get the chance to sort of be like, actually this is how I'm feeling. And the reason I do it in the group is because I know people need to talk, and like when someone asks them outside how are you, it's like out of politeness.
Yeah.
And like, so whenever I post those, I make sure I read through every comment. Even if I don't reply to every comment, I sort of read through them all. And sometimes I'll sort of private message people instead of sort of like writing on the Facebook group. But I just think it's just a safe sort of space for us. And I mean, I know the group's not for everyone. We've had people join the group and it's been quite overwhelming. And people do join, and then I'm just like, oh, this is a bit much. Like we are very oversharey at times.
Yeah, too many feelings for some people.
Yes, too many feelings for some people. And they're quite real feelings as well, just where we're struggling with work. I mean, I've vented on there about sort of just my life and like just about everything, it could be that sort of like I've had a horrendous journey back to my parents' house. I'm just like, oh, I need to vent about this driver. It's just about anything. And I think, and it can be a little bit heavy at times, but I think we all need that space where actually we just need to talk about how we're feeling, and we just need to get this out. And it's what I was saying earlier about children and giving them the space to sort of say what they need to. I think sort of as teachers, we need that space as well, because I don't know about you, I talk to my non-teaching friends about school and they're just like, well, why are you still working at this time? Because, if they work in an office, they go in at a certain time, they leave at a certain time, and then that's it. Their evenings are to themselves, their weekends, their holidays. I mean, been teaching 15 years and my mum's still like, why are you working in your holiday?
It's so true.
Sort of thing. And I think we all need that space just to talk with other people about, actually, this has happened to me at school today and no one else will understand, but you will. And it's it's that sort of space, sort of just for us to rant, just for us to celebrate things. A child in my class got this today and I've been working really hard, and we all get it. We all get how much energy has gone into like a child recognizing a common exception word. But if I told someone else that, they'd just be like, okay, it'd just be like, I don't get what you're so excited about.
I know,
or,
absolutely.
Finding that you've got hidden glue sticks in the cupboard that you'd forgotten about. It's just like, it's those sorts of things that actually we understand with each other, and we can give that support and we can give that advice, and with just it's just a nice sort of thing for us all to do for each other.
And it's definitely such a safe place, because I feel like there's so many teacher Facebook groups, and I know I'm on lots of them. I flip between them. I'm on the reception ones now. Last year I was in the year 6 and the key stage, and you do get some people that kind of, I don't know that they want to judge, but sometimes you're asking for support or help or a comment, and there's always one that is a bit more judgmental than what you wanted. And like sometimes I see things on groups and it's like, oh, I just did this, and I look and I check to see if it's the wellbeing group, and if it's not, I'm like, I like it, but I won't comment on it.
I'm exactly the same.
I was like, my bad, Facebook person. But it's just because it's so safe, and it's more of a community. Like Catherine said, it's such a safe place, and no one's ever being judgmental. It's all just about giving you answers that you want, or giving you support that you want.
And everyone's really honest, but they're honest in a nice way. And it's, I think, and that's the difference. I think in other Facebook groups, people are just so blunt with things.
Yeah, that's it.
And and they don't see things from someone else's sort of perspective. Where I think within our group, we do sort of put ourselves in other people's shoes and just think, oh, how would I feel if that happened to me? And then we kind of comment. So yeah, it is, I know I can post about anything. And as I said, like I've told the Facebook group things that my work colleagues haven't been told kind of thing. When I've gone through life events or sort of bereavements or anything like that, you know, I've talked about it in the Facebook group, and I've gone to school, put a sort of smile on my face, acted like nothing happened. And it is because I know no one's going to judge me. I know no one's going to judge me about how I'm feeling or anything like that. And, you know, they're not going to pity me or anything like that. They're just going to be supportive. And I think that's what I want. And, you know, I mean, I've been running the group for sort of just over 3 years, and I know that they appreciate it. I know everybody in the group appreciates one another. They appreciate the thought that goes into the presents. They appreciate the support. They appreciate the advice. And I think as teachers, you know, some of us aren't lucky in a school where we don't, you know, we don't get that sort of, actually, I appreciate you've done this, you know, or thank you for doing this. I think it's just nice to have a space where people do just go, oh, thank you for that comment, you know, or thank you for sending me this. And, you know, I mean, there's so many people in the group that they'll send each other things outside of exchanges just because they know this might be useful for this member. And, you know, it's just like, oh, I saw this. And, you know, like me and my hunt for orange 12s when they came out, you know, it's just like, oh, I found one, I'll send it to you. You know, it's that sort of thing. And it's just, and that's my whole, like, where I feel that sometimes I'm a bit too idealistic about kindness. And I go into the group and I think, actually, I'm not, because this group is full of just amazingly kind, wonderful, thoughtful people. And I think that's what makes it the community that it is just because everyone's just genuinely so kind. And, like, you know, I sometimes think when people join the group and sort of drop out of the group after a month or two, I just kind of think, well, you obviously weren't the right fit for our group. And, it's just, it's that sort of, just that element of it. It's just, I think it's really helped me. I mean, I set up the group at a time I was really struggling. My confidence was at an all-time low because of work. I was having problems at work, and I set up the group, and it was amazingly stressful. Just, I don't know, like, in hindsight, probably wasn't the best time for me to set up the group. But in, like, looking back, it really helped me just become sort of more balanced and regrounded, because I was then practicing what I was preaching to all of you. It's just like when I was telling you to look after yourselves, I had to look after myself. And, you know, and it was just that sort of thing. And I think sort of, I can't be more thankful than I am at the moment for the people in the group, because I'd be having really, really sort of rough days. I mean, you've seen them, and people would message me and just be like, I'm here if you want to talk. And, you know, it just really pulled me out of just an awful place. And that's why I sort of do my weekly check-ins now, because I'm very much like, I know what sort of place I was in. I just want to make sure that everybody else is okay. And as I said, everybody's just so wonderful and kind. And, you know, it just makes a massive difference. And I think we're good for each other's well-being. And that's what I was saying earlier, that, you know, we all impact upon each other. And hopefully the group has helped people with their well-being, but people need to also realise that they're helping others within the group with theirs as well, especially with all the exchanges and, like, the lovely gifts that get sent. So, I'm looking forward to the weekend when, you know, everyone starts opening their presents. It's my favourite time, just looking and being like, oh, I can do with that in my life, sort of thing. So,
absolutely. We've had someone, I have no idea what your name is, maybe you could text it onto the chat, but BDH4 and a whole lot of other letters said well-being is so important and yet overlooked by the top sometimes. And I think that goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, is that it really depends on your SLT if they can understand how important well-being is.
I will say, if people are struggling, just be persistent. Honestly, it's taken me 5 years to get to this point, and to be, you know, forever going on. I've been doing staff meetings. I don't know how people feel about staff meetings. You know, I follow teacher bloggers who are just like, oh, a well-being staff meeting. But I think for me, I wasn't you know, I've never been taught any of this well-being stuff as a
Mm.
child, and as an adult I've needed someone else to tell me. And I just kind of think, if my message gets through to one person in my school, that actually take some time to yourself, then it's kind of worth it. But I know lots of people are just like, you know, well-being mugs, well-being fairies, like it's all sort of rubbish and that's not going to help. But actually we can't change the big things in a school. We can't change marking policies and stuff like
No.
that straight
Yeah.
away, but we can
No.
change the little things that make, you know, just people's day a little bit brighter. So if just popping a little post-it note with a nice quote in someone's pigeonhole is all you can do to support someone's well-being when you know they're feeling sort of rough or not having a good day or had a bad lesson, if that's the one thing you can do, all those little things build up, and it kind of creates, all those little ripples create a massive wave afterwards. And I think that's what people need to remember. And my advice would just be persistent. I mean, with everything, I know my head teacher hates like introducing new things, because I'm the person who goes, okay, but what about well-being? You know, you're introducing this, you're changing the planning format, you're doing this, but what about teachers' workload? And is this really necessary? Do we have to do this? And I'll always sort of bring it back to well-being. So like when there was talk of sort of scrapping afternoon break, I was very much like, children need that break. You know? Like I can't, like, and we trialed it and I can see very like the children had ants in their pants, kind of they were fidgety, they weren't very happy. And it was a kind of like, we can't, you know, and it was so we had more time. Again, it comes down to time. And it's kind of like, okay, let's take away that, you know, downtime children have to create more time for another lesson. And it was kind of like that, if those children aren't concentrating, then there's no point doing this other lesson. And it's that, you know, and I'll always say there's a benefit in doing nothing. And that's what I'd say to any teacher listening at the moment, with what you can do outside to switch off. Nothing. Just sit and do nothing. Whatever your nothing looks like, if it's sitting in your garden, which is something I love doing, whether it's sort of, you know, having reality TV on that you're not really paying attention to, but as long as you're not laminating and cutting things out, you know, just do nothing. Just take a moment and just sort of take that time for yourself. You deserve, you know, that time. And I think as teachers, it's all about other people. It's about our classroom. It's about our year group. It's about making sure, you know, the school's data looks good. But actually, it's about us and it's about our families. We're always doing things for other people's children. We need to do it for, you know, our own families. And I've learnt the hard way, and this is going to sound really morbid, but God forbid anything ever happened to us, we'd be replaced.
So
You know, and we'd be forgotten about pretty soon afterwards. But our family and our friends can't replace us, and they won't forget about us. And I think I learnt that the hard way, and I just think about that now. So as I said, I work through my lunch break for sort of pretty much half of it, and I leave early. I've been a mentor for trainee teachers for the last couple of years, and the first thing I will say to them is, you do not have to wait until I leave to leave. You know, if you've done everything you need to do, you leave the school and you go home. You know? Like, how many of us have felt guilt tripped into staying for ages because we don't want to be the first person to leave? So, you know, I leave as soon as I can. I take a moment in the car if I can, just before I leave, just to sort of process everything that's happened. And I drive home, process everything that's happened during the day, and then I leave it as much as I can. I leave work at work. But again, 15 years it has taken me to get to this point. It's not an easy thing. And it only started because someone told me that I wouldn't cancel a doctor's appointment because of work or any health appointment because of work, but I cancel things for me, you know. And so now I sort of schedule in me time in my diary, and I won't cancel it. And during that time, you know, I'll go out with my camera, I'll read a book, I'll do some gardening, I'll go out with friends, I'll walk, I'll do whatever. And it's just prioritizing yourself. And that's what I do now, because I mean, I'm part-time as well. I don't know if I mentioned that before. I'm part-time, and when I first went part-time, I was working pretty much full-time hours.
I've heard that from so many part-time teachers. My friend does part-time and she's planning on her days off.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I'm only paid for 16 hours.
I'm doing like 40.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it hit home when I was filling out the sick form one day, and it was like, how many hours in your day? And it was 5.5. And I was kind of like, oh my God, I'm paid for 5.5 hours in a day. And I'm working so many more. So I do have a cut-off point at night now. So if I have to work at home, I'll work at home, but it's done in one block. So it's either done in the evenings or part way on my day off, because I don't get PPA every week. So I have to sort of juggle that. And I'm just very strict about it. And it's so hard, because teacher guilt comes in. And, you know, I hate teacher guilt. It's that little voice in the back of your brain going, oh, but you should be doing this. And, you know, if you don't do this, like, you won't be able to do that tomorrow or what have you. Actually, we need to just put that teacher guilt aside. And so I go to extremes as well. So I'm not suggesting this for everybody, but I have a separate wardrobe and everything for school. I have a very different look for school than I do for my days off. To the extent my perfume is different.
Oh wow, that's very good. That's clever.
Just so on my days off, I look completely different. Like, my hair's out, I'm wearing a different perfume. There is no sort of like link to teacher Zainab and, you know, me kind of thing as a person. And it has really helped, because then on Thursday, Friday, I'm me, I'm my normal self. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm back at work and I'm sort of my work self. But that was me sort of being like, right, let's set a boundary, a very clear boundary between sort of like me and work. And because I think otherwise that guilt will always set in. I mean, it's just sort of, I asked recently about my directed hours, and I was reminded of the caveat in the teacher contract that you'll work an additional hours to fulfill your responsibilities, and they, you know, a reasonable amount. And I thought, what's reasonable? Because I'm, you know, paid for 16.5 hours and I was working almost full time. That's not reasonable. You know, I go to school over an hour early, I'm in school an hour after school finishes. To me, like, an extra 2.5 hours every day is reasonable. I don't need to work, you know, even more than that. And I mean, sure, some people will be like, oh, no, even that's not reasonable, kind of thing. But, you know, it's like definition kind of thing of what you class. So I think you need to do what works for you. And if what works for you is going to school sort of just before you start and staying late and getting everything done, you know, that's great, do it. But if what works for you is going in early and working half your lunch like I do and going home early, you know, that's great as well. It's finding what works for you and not worrying about what other people think of you, because I think that's the trap I fell into. I was kind of like, oh, you know, all these teachers are staying here till 6, I need to stay here till 6. And a lot of the time I'd just be sitting in my classroom twiddling my thumbs because I had nothing to do. And it's just, it's just doing that. It's just switching off. And like, one of the things I've done, I sort of said to you a couple of weeks ago, I've booked in something every month that's just something nice for me.
Yeah, you said. I like that.
I'm going to the Van Gogh exhibition next Friday as a reward for going back to work. I've got Lion King tickets booked. You know, every month there is going to be something that I've planned in just for one day each month that is just for me. It will give me something to look forward to, and it will give me time to switch off.
Yeah.
You know, it's just making sure we sort of plan in that time. So my one tip: schedule in me time, whatever it is, whatever your hobbies are, schedule that into your diary and don't cancel it, because people won't forget you bailing out on them if you cancel sort of coffees with friends and, you know, or seeing family things. They'll always remember that, where people at school won't remember all the hours that you've put in.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other thing I think that I always have in the back of my mind. No one's going to remember that I worked like ridiculous hours to get something done, but my friends and my family will remember that I wasn't there for their important events.
Yeah.
So
It's so true.
Just getting that sort of sorted, and just it's changing your mindset, but doing it and not letting it's being persistent with yourself as well, I guess. You know, not letting other people guilt you just because they're doing something doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you.
Yeah, I feel like you have to be able to have conversations with yourself as a teacher.
Yes.
And like you say, like, I'm scheduling in my me time and I'm going to do it because of this. And I find sometimes, like you said, people that are not teachers or are not in education do not understand it.
No.
And my parents are one of those. And sometimes I just want to go into a museum by myself because we are surrounded by children every day.
Yes.
And I want to come home or go out and just be like, nobody talk to me.
Yes.
Like, we're surrounded by people, and I don't think a lot of jobs are like that.
No.
So in that respect, the me time is so important. And also, you were saying like processing in the car at the end of the day, and a lot of the times I've given like friends or colleagues a lift to work, and I love it because you can have a chat, but I don't have time to get my head into gear for the day.
No. And you're normally talking about school.
Yeah, like venting.
Yes. So, but sometimes you just need to process yourself, don't you? So it's great having someone to talk to and vent to, and then that gets it out. But there are times where you just want to be like, right, actually, just no one talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've had some like really great comments at I about people loving the idea of scheduling things in for themselves. So I'm going to sit down tonight and look at what I can do with my family in September.
Honestly,
so important.
I think it is. I mean, I've made more time for my family over the last few years. I think when I look back at when I was full-time and I was sort of newly qualified, I cringe at how many things I missed out on.
Yeah.
Just, you know, and
so
like
true.
It's just like, and it really upsets me. And now I'm kind of like, right, no, I'm doing this. So, you know, I spent the day with my nephew yesterday. We went for waffles because something else my group knows that I love. But it was just a day for him. And I just thought, you know, even with COVID, because we don't live anywhere near each other, you know, it's always kind of like thinking back at our phone calls. It's like, what have you done at school today? And it's like, I've got to forget, you know, my being a teacher and being interested as a teacher and talk about other things and be like interested as, you know, an aunt, and let him see that actually she's not always on teacher mode. She's not always going to be like, you need to do this at school. You need to do this at school. Oh, I've got a resource that can help you with that. I've done that. You know, it's kind of like, it's just making that time. So the more you can plan in time, especially if you're a teacher with children, you know, planning that time with your children as well, that's just quality, just time. And like, and for you, like, it would just be nice for you to, I guess, spend time with your family as well, especially, I don't know what you find with religious holidays, because obviously our religious holidays don't fall in like holiday time. Yes, and it's just, you know, it's kind of making time for that. I kind of sort of sit there and just like, how many times have I rushed through Eid dinners and stuff like that because I've got to go to work the next day. And it's just things like that. And it's, you know, I just kind of think I need to just make more of an effort and sort of like scheduling me time, scheduling family time, and scheduling friend time, and, you know, and just be there for people and just have those talks. I think if the pandemic's taught me anything, is that life really is short. And, you know, like I sort of had a bereavement. I hadn't seen that person for over a year because COVID kept us apart. And I was kind of like, I need to make the most of time now with like family and friends. And I know people are like, oh, teaching's your life, but actually teaching's just a job. It's a job that is, you know, helping you like live your life, but you shouldn't be living just to work and just to go to school. So it's just switching off, isn't it? And just not going into a shop, as you said, and go, oh, I can use that at school. It's like everything. So now I'm kind of like, you know, like, oh, I like that. I'll get that for me, not for school. And the more you sort of prioritize yourself, those conversations become easier. So I think we just need to do that. Be kind to ourselves more.
It's
And
so
again,
true. Like I remember you were talking about don't cancel events, and it's so funny. I remember when I was in NQT and right at the beginning, and I'd gone to see a friend up in Ipswich, and we were going out for like a pub lunch with a couple of other people, and I think it was a Sunday, and I just remember sitting there feeling so sick to my stomach and nervous and anxious that I hadn't planned for the week.
yes.
And that's what I remember about the event.
Yeah. I'm the same. Mine would be like, how long will it take me to get home if I don't leave now?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, it would just be things like that. And yeah, you're right. So many of, I've been to weddings, I've been to like engagement things, just dinners with friends, and in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking about school. So I'm not, and mindfulness is great for that. It's just living in the moment. And so I'm just far more focused and just being like, oh, actually, let me take time for me now. Let me actually observe what's going on and just not think about school. So, yeah.
I think a lot of it also comes down to your senior leadership team and how supportive they are, and are they micromanaging you, or are they just kind of trusting you and letting you get on with it? And do you trust yourself as a teacher? I think that's a big part of being able to separate work and life.
Yeah.
That's a massive part of it.
And I think if you're not trusted, it kind of sort of breaks down your trust in yourself as well.
Absolutely.
Because you're kind of like, oh, they don't trust me to do this right. And you sort of second guess all your judgments.
Yeah.
But again, it's just little steps with senior leadership. I think we often try to move a mountain far too quickly.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of breaking down, being persistent, little steps, and just, thinking which battles can I win here and what's most important. So I've now learned to choose like what I'm going to fight against, because before I try and fight against all of it, or try to get certain things implemented, and now I just kind of look at it and go, right, what is going to be more beneficial, and I sort of go with those. So choose
I love that.
Well.
I love it. I trained with a teacher very similar to you, and she was real like out there and very much trailblazer, and she's actually moved to South Korea because she didn't want to teach in England anymore. I mean, and she's incredible. She's amazing. And she just said to me, and I still remember it to this day, even though I trained about 7 years ago, she said, like you, if I can't see a reason that benefits the children, I don't do it. I just thought, I love you. I want to be more like you.
I do say that to my trainees. I just, it's great if you want to have your Pinterest perfect classroom, that's great, but how long is it going to stay like that? And just what's on the walls, is it beneficial to the children? Are they actually going to use it? Like, you're spending hours cutting, laminating, cutting out again, kind of thing. And it has to be, if it's not going to benefit you and it's not going to benefit the children, and you're just doing it as so you've got a paper trail, it's not worth doing. And that's when you sort of say to leadership, actually, can you tell me why we're doing this? And
I mean, I think displays play a big part in a classroom, and I've walked into classrooms sometimes, and literally the only thing I can think to describe it is it looks like Twinkle threw up on the board. And I just think no one's going to
there, haven't we?
Yeah. And I just think no one's going to look at it, and if the child does look at it, they're not going to know where to look because there's whole
so
Twinkle
much
display pack.
Yes, and I think, and that's the other thing about well-being as well, is thinking about what sort of children you have in your classroom, because for some children that's sensory overload. I mean, for me now, it's sensory overload. And you've got to be in that classroom for like 5 hours a day just with all this colour. If I had my way, it would be like pastel classroom, really neutral, really natural. But again, it's like drip feeding like all the time to your SLT, that actually, we need to think about the environment that we're all in. And so that will be my next battle.
I know you will win the battle. We'll fight in the war together, and we're going to win some battles. So I mean, it's been amazing talking to you, Zayla, and I think that all the teachers, and we've even had a senior leader on here that's commented that the motto is, if it doesn't benefit the children, we don't do it. And I think some senior leaders fall short of that because they're so focused on data. But I just think wellbeing is so important for teachers and for all staff in school. And it's just been amazing talking to you, and I hope everyone's enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you very much. Any last words of advice?